Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Adobe Live. It's Tuesday today, middle of the week. If you divide your week into fifths, and we're not going to do the maths. Anyway, today I'm joined by Joe Parsons, one of my good friends, longtime friends. Joe, you've known me longer than most people I know right now, which is quite amazing. Potentially more than my parents. Anyway.
That's because you've killed everyone else. No, yes, lovely to have known you for so long. Thank you for having me, and yes, apologies in advance. I start every screen like that.
Welcome back to Adobe Live, Joe. We did a session together, I think 2 or 3 months ago, just before your run up to Edinburgh Fringe, as a stand-up comedian. A whole busy month. Hope that went well. Likewise, plenty of people in the chat loved seeing you and have asked for you back, so welcome back. And yeah, let's introduce some people in the chat. If you want to join us, come and join us on behance.net/live. And we've got plenty of Adobe Live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday for the UK. And of course, if you want to learn some German or some French, or maybe you want to catch up, there's plenty there to watch as well.
I was going to say, I hope that's not what I've been brought in for. Because I'm going to be honest, my German and French are pretty poor.
Well, we can maybe book that in. We get a lot of the German guests come onto the UK stream, and they do a much better job speaking English than I would German. So I'm always ashamed of that, but it's nice to learn little bits every now and then.
Well,
anyway, good afternoon.
So I was like, your English, it doesn't. We're built on shame, so that's fine. Anyway, You continue. Sorry, I'm going to keep interrupting you on.
No, good afternoon to Jeffrey, Sean, Tim, Angus, Oliver. Who else we got in the chat? Sandrine is there. Gareth. Who else? I'm in the chat as well. Barbara, hello. Michelle. Plenty of people. Let us know where you're from in the chat. Throw some questions. We'll try our best to answer them. Maybe not immediately, but I may be able to hold them back and get some answers for you. And likewise, if you want to watch it on YouTube, that's perfectly fine. But Behance is where we're chatting. So, Joe, this is going to be a fun one.
Hopefully.
Let's just recap a little bit. For those of you who don't know who you are, hello, welcome. Who are you, and what are you up to?
So, my name's Joe. Nice to meet you. I'm a stand-up comic based in London, but I was before that I was a designer and have been for 11 years. Also, God, time goes, doesn't it? So very much multifaceted sort of designer. I do most things, all self-taught with like After Effects and stuff, which is what we're going to be touching on today. So lots of stuff I do, I self-produce. So lots of videos, lots of green screening. I've learned that ironing your green screen is very much an important part of the process. Look, it's only taken me 2 years of green screening to work that out. So yes, slow learner, but very much, I'm a lover and not a fighter. I don't know why I said that. But generally speaking, pretty chilled out guy.
Yeah, and the stream that we did last time was almost like a press release or like mock-up for your show. How did your show go in Edinburgh? Did the document come in handy?
The document sort of did come in handy getting some people in. I did sort of refine it to being much shorter and turn it into like a sort of comedy CV. So it got a few people in, got some of the big dogs, the big dogs.
Yeah.
And they've since gone, yes, we really like you. Let's do a project in the next 10 or 15 years. That's how slow TV works, so that's good. But generally speaking, it was fine, broadly fine. Reviews were relatively good. Most people liked it, and I've come back. I filmed it, and I'm releasing the special, as they call it. That's what the Americans call it, isn't it? I'm releasing a special, which is out at the end of November.
Amazing. And this is what we're potentially working on today, right? Some of the credits, the opening.
Yeah, so the opening credits are awful at the moment-ish. Some of it's supposed to be bad because it's like badly filmed. It's like sort of B-roll stuff, so it sort of introduces the fact it's quite an intimate gig. It's done at a very small comedy club. It's about an 80-seater in London, so it needed to look cozy. So all of the video editing is done. I just wanted to do some of the typography on top of it, sort of in line with the brand of the show. So the show used quite a lot of screen work, so it all uses the same typography. It's attention to detail. That's what makes comedy work. Literally no one probably would notice apart from me, but it's important to me that everything from Edinburgh through to the special is sort of branded in the same way.
Yeah, no, I think it goes a long way. Subconsciously, I think everyone kind of pays attention to it. Consciously, though, you're right. It probably is only like the designers, the type nerds, the people we hang out with, pretty much.
Yeah,
So
the
at
people
least,
you hang out with.
in that realm of things, happy days, all good. So should we jump over into After Effects?
Why the heck not? I'm going to try not to swear this time because last time I was a bit potty mouthed, and I sort of forget that I'm being watched by a broad number of people. So just to give you an idea, I've got this little clip up as to what I'm not going to play the audio, as this is very not PG. But basically, you'll get the idea. I appreciate over the stream, I'm not sure how sort of slick this will look, but you can see it's all a bit sort of rough and ready, lots of different clips. And at the moment, I've just placed text over the top of it when it gets like darker, when it's not overexposed or rubbish. So it's just to give you an idea that this is a bit hodgepodge as a film. It was done for £100, this film. So we managed to set up 3 cameras and I've edited it all. So it's very much done on the cheap, this special, but it doesn't, the quality of the stand-up's better than the quality of the filming. So we're doing the best of a bad bunch. But as I say, there's a bit of green screening there for you to scroll through. So this is sort of where I got to, which is very much placeholder. It's just a simple, there's my name, there's the show name. But I wanted to do something a bit funkier than that for my credits. So I'm going to do a bit of a Blue Peter. Here's one I done earlier. That's a very English reference, but essentially, here's one I made earlier, by which I mean this morning. So it's not perfect, but I quite like the sort of slickness of it. And using the sort of equal signs to make it sort of equalize. There's a sort of play on words there, and using really simple devices just to make something really slick. So we've got this kind of sort of scoreboard ticker vibe, which is actually much harder than it looks, I realized, because the I and the R and all this sort of the difference of spacing that you're having to play with means that a lot of this clashes. So we'll get to that a bit later. And then just a little bit of a reveal for my name, and then the director, and then using the same sort of shapes. So I wanted to show you how I've made this. So we're going to start from scratch. Is that all clear? Is that fine, Joe?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Already, I'm loving the styling of it, and definitely spot the nods to sport, because of course your show is heavily about sport.
Very good point. Yeah, the show is about being a massive gay sports fan, which is very much my that's what I'm about. So I've just created a background layer, which I just double clicked on the square to make it fit the whole board. This isn't going to move. This is more just for me more than anything else. So I'm just going to rename that to make it BG. I'll try and keep this as tidy as possible, because I know that a certain Mr. Joe Allam is a bit of a neat freak. He loves things to be neat, but I can also feel I'm going to be able to feel his twitch as I do this from an entirely sort of self-taught vibe. But I'm also going to be doing this quickly, so there will be more accurate ways of doing this. So got Joseph there. We'll just pop. I might even drag you down.
I mean, to be fair, I think After Effects for myself as well is something that I'm very much self-taught, and got my YouTube degree from, of just learning from everyone else. And it does have a lot of control for, precision, but at the same time, there's a lot of contradicting controls. You've got anchor points and positions, and then internal anchor points and positions. So there's no real way of just getting everything anchored 0, 0 and being happy with it. So you kind of just have to, live and let live, you know?
You do. And also, I think every single week I learn a new way of making something quicker. Like when I realized that if you press U on your keyboard and it just opens up all the keyframes that exist instead of having to open up them manually, I wanted to cry because it was such an important moment for me. So what we've got here is some very basic Joseph and Parsons. Now, what I'm going to sort of then jump in and do now is create a separate composition. So roughly from memory, by which I mean by looking at this, I've called them swoopy rectangles. Cool. So we're going to create swoopy rectangles, which I'm going to do the width of 3000 by 500. Give them a little name. Swoop, swoop, or swoop, swoop. It's that classic thing, the swoop, swoop. These are technical terms. I did a university degree. It's amazing how little of that I use. So I've just double clicked again to create a rectangle that fills the old artboard, as it's called, I imagine, or stage. What are we calling this, Joe?
Stage is the term, yeah.
Gonna have to just move me. Sorry, this is I'm doing this over two screens, so it's basically whenever I click anything, it's giving me a guess where it is moment. It's quite fun. So again, there's going to be there's so many ways of making a sort of rectangle transition in. You can do this via movement, you can do this via position, but I'm going to do this via scale because I find it easier to work with. So
Oliver's just mentioned in the chat, called out my untidy sense, like Spidey sense, but when I can sense things are unorganized.
I've known you literally all my life. Actually, I've done something wrong already, so that's a good start. So what we're going to do is just move this little anchor point here. Again, I'm doing this loosey goosey because I'm not a fan of neatness. I'm not a neat freak. I'm not Joe Allam. So he could just enjoy this for a moment. So that's going to be a very basic transition, like it's loading, but it's not what we're looking for. So just going to play with a bit of easing. Am I going too quickly or too slowly?
No, I mean this is great. This is playing out.
Cool.
It's fine.
So just gonna literally just go extreme for now, and I think what I'll probably do is just make the transition out a little bit less extreme.
The graph editor was a special moment for me when I first discovered that. It was during I think it was like a talk at Adobe Max. Someone was just going through like a run off of 50 After Effects tips you must know, and I was thinking, okay, there's either going to be 50 here that will blow my mind, or hopefully maybe I know most of them. And credit to them, a large majority of them were brand new to me. This was a few years ago now, and graph editor blew my mind. It was exactly what I'd been looking for. I'd been like manually over setting my keyframes to like bring things back and add in easing and all sorts.
Oh my lord, the amount of times I've not done something correctly because of easing. And as soon as I realized you can do it via speed or via value. So I've always gone value because, I'm a man who likes value. I'm a man who values things. That's what they always say about me, actually. They always say that about me, don't they, Joe? So what I'm going to just do is just clip these up. What I do to clip these up is probably, again, is not the quickest way of doing it. I literally just duplicate it by holding Apple or Command Shift and D, just so I can get it relatively even. There we go. We're going to plonk that there. And now if I've done that all correctly, that should now transition in the wrong way round and do that way. So we're going the other direction. So what I've done there is just reverse the keyframes, which is a bit of fun because I want to do it slightly differently this time. So you can see what I've done, just reverse the keyframes, duplicated up the file. It's really simple. I'm just going to zoom out, see how big this is. I think this is probably about... So we'll keep this long for now. Keep this a long frame because we don't know how long we're going to need these in because I'm going to sort of play around with them. So this is my first swoop. I'm happy with the swoop. So I'm going to jump back into the title screen. I'm going to bring in a swoop. And now this won't be the perfect size. So this is why I like doing it in compositions, is because I can't see them. So here we go. I'll just scroll down here. So the reason why I like doing them in compositions is because I can just play around with sizing here. It feels a bit cheeky. So I can just go, right, I'm going to make you slightly longer. sort of, and then you don't have to mess around with getting this neat and tidy, because I'm going to have loads of these. These are sort of, this is like one of my main component parts. So they're going to be lots of different sizes, and because it's square, you can get away with distorting it. So it just feels like the easiest way of doing it. Again, I'm sure many people will have a different way of doing this and go, this is terrible, Joe. So there we go. You got a basic equal sign there. So when that transitions, my computer's a little bit on the older side, so it will slowly do it. It's a bit slow. So I'm just going to drag these back, make sure it's a relatively even thing. Maybe just drag that there. Play. Very slow there.
Yep.
So it's a bit chilled out. It's a bit relaxed. It's a bit like going, yeah, I'll get there, but in my own time, which is a bit too lazy for me. So just going to keep shortening it until I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
This is the tweaks. This isn't very exciting stuff, so you're welcome to ask a question or something else.
Well, I was just going to say, actually, Tim's just mentioned that, even if it's not the best way to do it, in the end, if it comes out the same, no one really notices.
No one's looking at your files. I've always said that unless you're doing stuff with developers and hand it over, and then they go, sorry, have you ever tidied anything ever in your life? Like all developers do with me, because whenever I do any project, it's because because I'm rushing it. Because time is of the essence. So there we go.
I mean, I live by a methodology of thanking my past self and preparing for my future self. And one of those is, keeping my stuff organized, and because even if you're not necessarily working with developers, when you come around to edit it later on, everything's there, it's maybe noted, it's listed, and so you can make those tweaks rather than tearing your hair out both before and after and when you come to edit it. Angus has actually just mentioned calling me out, saying looking a little bit uneasy in the chair every time Joe says relaxed or guesstimate.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it with values, sure, with values, but I just scroll it up and down, my friend. I feel like I very much approach this kind of stuff in a slightly different way to you, don't I, Joe?
Yeah, but you know what? It's refreshing because I mean, I also know that you enjoy designing within guidelines, and like guidelines, I think are one of the best ways of just creating some sort of like rhythm to your design. But at the same time, if you start too early with your guidelines, you're not gonna progress your creativity as far as you want. So it's all about balance, definitely.
I also just think that there's sometimes, if you put too much of a law in straight away, you sometimes, you completely restrict yourself from the very start. So when you're just piecing things together like this and you're just trying to get a feel for it, so I've just sort of separated those lines out at the top just to give a bit more dimension. I don't dislike that. What are your thoughts on the multiple swoop, other than the just block
I think
swoop?
Yeah, it matches. The thing that I'm drawing nods to is if you look at your A, for example, that's quite angular. And I seem to remember that O was angular previously, but maybe I'm imagining a different font.
I think you're imagining a different font.
I like how the sort of like broken blocks is kind of nodding towards that sort of sharper angular look to things.
Yeah, I quite like the broken blocks. We're going to go broken blocks. Cool. So in my usual incredibly tidy way, dupe, duplicate it, scroll through, see roughly where you are, realize you've duplicated the wrong things, and jobs are good. Yeah, I think it's these two, isn't it? Or is it? Let's just have a look at that. Yeah, that's those two. I'm going to get rid of you because you're confusing me. Yeah, I think you're right. Any questions from anyone in the old chat, or are they all being very well behaved right now?
People are very well behaved. Definitely enjoying.
That's quite cool, actually.
Enjoying the uncomfort I have at lack of neatness at times. But you know what?
So what's been unneat so far? What would you say? Is it the fact that this isn't directly on 20, or what's? I feel like it's been relatively neat.
Yeah, no, it's fitting the bill. It's
fitting the bill. That's all we work towards. So there we go. So do you work quite a lot in lots of compositions? because I tend
Yeah.
to work heavily and just build. When I build out a main thing, it's made out of lots of tiny little compositions.
Well, I think one of the things, again, that potentially holds me back at times in the early stages is I so often think of where something could go in terms of like a collection of titles. You know, if I'm making titles, I'm thinking, right, I'm going to be making a batch of other stuff. So any design elements I create here, I may reuse in other title designs. So I'm like, okay, let's comp these, let's create situations, let's create systems so that I can save time later when I'm repeating things, but there's a lot of upfront time, you know, creating it. But then I think a lot of that comes from the development side of things. So often when you're coding, you're kind of coding functions and creating your own little products that you'll then go and use later. So it's a different way of thinking, I guess. If you can imagine a graph of like time it takes to do something and then actual productivity, all shoots up at the end. But the initial phase, it looks like you've got nothing done for hours.
I always feel like that. That might be because I've done nothing for hours. So you'll see I'm very tidily just piecing together how big this composition is going to be, which is, again, this is how you do it. You just guess. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Just guessing. In fact, I'm going to make it 3,100, and we should. No, that's me being bad at maths right there. Just keep that one about 330. It's probably about 600. Here we go. There we go. That's sort of tidy-ish. Right, cool. So I'm making the centerpiece at the moment. So this is going to become the guide. I'm just going to pop a little bit of a background on as well, just because.
Have you gone into expressions and coding in After Effects? Is that something
God, no.
jumped into at all?
I whenever I think about coding, I actually break out in hives, because it's just so it is creative, but it's so like hard. Like people do that for fun. Do you know that? People like they're breaking into a bank or something online and like hacking. For me, I'm so thick. Like I am immensely stupid. I would say probably one of the most thick people on earth. So I just don't have the talent or the patience to learn coding. But yeah,
you know what? This is good though, because it's, as we were saying earlier, like you still get to the same result, and you know where and how often you're going to be, you know, jumping into this to make new versions and other stuff. So you don't necessarily need to go through and do the expressions and other things, because you'll actually get the result that you want way faster.
It's very useful, I think, if you're doing a bigger project which has lots of moving parts. I'd imagine for sort of animation and things like that, where it's a bit more. This is obviously quite graphic, so it's very much sort of like a print designer taking on the beast of After Effects more than it sort of is, or a web designer, as I should define myself as. So I've just created another composition, which I've since lost. So here we go. So this is what's going to be the sort of tickery tick ticks. Now, I don't think this is the best way of doing it yet. So I'm open to suggestions on this, but this is what I did earlier. So, Joe, if you do have any sort of like ideas as to what would make this work better, do let me know. It's actually a very slow way of doing it. I think it's actually quicker if I just typed this out again. But you know, I'm
committed now.
I'm a slave to my own sort of chaotic systems. Right, cool.
So I'm already thinking in my head different ways that we could approach this. So because you're having moving animation, aren't you? It's going up.
Yeah. It's slap bang in the movement, sort of middle.
Okay. So my first thought was using something like a character offset.
Yeah, so it sort of goes.
Animate, but that doesn't include your movement, so you'd have to add in some extra movement. But you could potentially have a text box that ends up repeating itself above using whatever's typed below. Or we do it the rough and ready way, which just gets the job done. It's
Yeah, I mean, a character offset works, but I think again, you sort of this for me. I wanted to for this to for me, I wanted to have all of the sort of same letters of
Mhm.
equalizer in each bit.
Yeah, whereas an offset chooses the letter
Offset
next to it.
is
Yeah,
it's just a randomizer.
yeah.
So yeah, this is me being incredibly slow with this now. There we go.
So the offset is actually a design feature I've got in all of my titles.
I know. I've
Which
said. We've all seen those, mate. Do a bit of plugging. Plug your show. You're very good. We need to watch
and
it
those
more.
are of course based upon the departures boards from travel, like airports and ports and train stations and all sorts. And Sandrine has just mentioned that as well for the airport panel feel. There's an effect for that, and that is the character offset. Which if you add some animation, you can get something pretty slick. Yeah, a lot of fun to play with.
Yeah, I just did that for my for some like online stand-up clips I've been doing. This is so agonizing. I keep really undercompensating. I'm getting annoyed with myself doing this. There we go. That sort of thing. This comp's going to be called Words One. So I'm going to have a variation of these. Again, who knows if this is the best way of doing this? But what I do is I just swap letters around. So I've still got all the letters of equalizer, and I don't know why this is important to me, but it is. Just so that we're going to get variations. So I'm going to do a few of these, and there'll be occasions where I won't get the right thing together because my brain won't allow me to. That'll do. So that'll be words one, which will make white. How long have we got left? Because this could be like.
We've got 35 minutes.
Isn't time going quickly nowadays?
I was just thinking, like, this is kind of reminiscent of how it used to be when I was working in agencies, and there's never enough time. There's never enough time. There's never enough money, and you're always tasked at the last minute, might I add, with some sort of thing to create, and you're like, oh man, I've literally only got 30 minutes to do this. How can I speed make it so that it does the job, and I never have to touch it again? Until, of course, Monday, when they ask for amends and other things. But this is kind of reminiscent of that. I'm trying to work out if it's a little bit traumatic or not. It's
What? It's just watching me work. many have described it as that.
Yeah. Are you working much in agencies at the moment, or you're focusing on your comedy, aren't you?
I am at the moment, but to my detriment, financially in a woeful state at the moment. So I will need to jump back into some agency work if anyone's got any jobs. Although this isn't a great advert for my ability right now, but we're having a good time.
Sandrine's asking, "Are we doing Wordle?"
It is
Almost,
Wordle. Yeah. It is Wordle, but but not. I've never done a Wordle. No, I've never done a Wordle.
Type of game. Yeah.
I quite like words.
Yeah.
I think we can all see what I'm doing at the moment, so it's probably best just to talk over this bit. I'm not a big wordler. I don't think.
Tim's made a suggestion.
Yeah.
He's saying, what if you swapped in some of them the S for a Z, and then you can go global in your titles, just for some of them, for some American friends.
No, that was a real challenge because my PR could not get their head around the fact that it was equalizer with an S, which is how we spell it in English when we're sort of defining an equalizer. So for a lot of my press releases, the show was mistitled.
Oh no.
Which isn't ideal because if people are searching for your show at the Fringe and put a Z in, they won't find it. So you're not alone, whoever that was, in that suggestion. Because my PR is just like, why don't you just change the name of the show? I was like, I'm not willing to do that.
I mean, I even had a little thought. I don't know if this is cheesy or not. We may have to see it to decide. Because the last two letters that changed, I think, were the I and the S, and I was like, what if just before they were IS, they were a 1 and a 5? You know, like a sport.
Oh, like a number plate.
Yeah. But then, you know, then it returns around to the correct word and spelling. Likewise with the Z mention, only on some of the randomization.
Do you know what? That could be really good. We might do that. We'll scamp it out first. This is what this is, scamping it out. There must be a quicker way of doing this, but I think the easiest way is to do the character offset. But this is a bit more fun, isn't it, everyone?
Yep. Still does the end job.
I think we're now so committed to how long this has been so far that we now want to see what the finished product is. We've sort of committed to it now, haven't we? Right, there we go. That's sort of where we're at. So this is very much going to be your end position. Now, if I was clever, I would have separated dimensions before I did this. But I'm not, so I haven't. So what we're going to do is we're going to just pop that there, and then what we're going to do is drag them all down like this. And we're going to align them all up so they go slightly different places. And we'll have sort of like a sort of weird scrolly scroll. Now, what we'll do, so this is where I should have separated dimensions, you see? Because now this speed graph is what can only be described as a nightmare. So I'm going to do that now. And then single-handedly go through all of this by just Uing and unUing in a minute once I've minimized everything, where there's probably a shortcut that I don't know about. So we've viewed and U'd, get off the graph. I think it's the X is horizontal, isn't it?
Yep. Along the X, up the Y.
You know how some people struggle with like left and rights?
Yep.
I struggle with my X and Ys. Does anyone else? By which I don't mean chromosomes.
Yeah, it's probably a very common thing. In fact, on the stream, was it last week or week before? We had a week of 3D, and in texturing, so like applying patterns and all sorts onto objects, you don't use X, Y coordinates, you use UV coordinates.
U and V.
And, yeah, when talking about it beforehand, I kind of had to stop and question, being like, what's a UV? Thinking it was maybe like a, some sort of ultraviolet texturing thing. But no, it's just coordinates. It's just X and Y are already used on a 2D, so U and V are used in a 3D.
When does Z come into it? Because I've used cameras on it. I mean, that looks quite cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it works. I guess Z comes into it when you're converting a 2D plane into a 3D stage. UV being a 3D object, which you could then put within a 3D space, I believe. That's my understanding of it.
Well done.
Yeah.
I think we've got to a point where I'm relatively okay with that. So we'll just pop it in, and we'll get back to some other stuff. Then we'll start tweaking it and refining it and making it all tidy and all of that good stuff.
Sandrine said, I had trouble when I was a kid with left and right, and it got resolved when I started to play chess. That just sounds like you're solving chaos with more complexity. Amazing.
I don't think I still don't know how to play chess.
I'm chess.
I'm 32 in 2 days, and I don't yet. Thank you for the happy birthdays, guys. Cool. So it's all a bit too tight. That's good to know. So what we'll do is just separate these swoopy swoops so that they are aligned to the right ones, so that we can easily move things.
I see. So it's about the board arrangement of putting the white squares on the right. And
yeah, you just don't. And also, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. That does make a lot of sense. Do you play chess, Joe?
I do. I haven't played in a while.
I bet you're good at chess.
Quite often, Ellie doesn't let me play.
Why is it? Because you're too talented.
It doesn't last very long.
I'm with Ellie. I think me and Ellie, this is why we get on so well, me and Ellie, is because we are sort of, I think we don't know the stuff you know and are all passionate about.
Oh, we've got birthday messages coming in. Happy
Oh,
birthdays.
stop
Best
it, you
birthdays in
guys.
October, apparently.
I
So,
completely agree with you.
I'm going to assume that means, Angus, you have a birthday coming up. If not, already had. So happy
Oh,
birthday.
Angus, you have to be from Scotland with that name. You simply must. So that's not giving me much time to appear. Is it my name? Right. What are we feeling so far?
Birthday today. Happy birthday to you.
You're spending your birthday watching this. Oh, if you paid for it, I'll give you a refund. That's the confidence you need, I think, in design, isn't it? How do you think this is looking now, mate? We've got sort of like the counter going, and we've got
adding up, doubling over.
It's adding up. It's doubling over. It's
swoopy, scroll.
It's absolutely fine, isn't it? But I think, do you know what? When you do watch my special, which is out on the 18th of November, was that an obvious plug?
No, that's exactly how they do it on TV.
It is. It was a bit like the Graham Norton show, wasn't it? The Graham Norton show, they always do that, don't they? I think the Graham Norton show now is just a vehicle for celebrities to talk about themselves. I quite like the difference of timing there. So I've gone quite big with this canvas because it's, dare I say, 4K. Mm-hmm. So what I now tend to do when we start to get to this sort of section of the game, because this is a game, I start to color these so that it makes it much easier to sort of see what links with what. So this swoopy swoop comes in here. So we'll pop you down here. These swoopy swoops are secondary. So we're going to pop you in these yellows. And then we'll pop you down here and we'll make you aqua and we'll drag you down here and we'll make it. So here we go. Here's where the tidying starts to happen. Seafoam. What a horrible color. What color is your favorite color? This is the kind of top level chat we were all here for.
It varies on the environment. It's man, I don't know. I mean, I find myself wearing, not today anyway, but wearing a lot of very, very dark grey, and like an almost black. I love like a 97% black on things. In terms of like a color,
such a designer color. That's such a
with a
designer answer. No blues for you. I'm amazed you haven't given me a bloody Pantone.
I do love actually like a really dark, like a dark navy blue. Yeah, that has like a nice svelty feel to it sometimes.
I was gonna do.
Yeah, it depends on the environment. When it comes to the sky, big thing that I talk about a lot is the Alpen Glow, or the Venus's Belt, which is the reverse of a sunset or a sunrise, which makes the sky kind of pink. You got that sort of like blue to pinky hue just at the horizon.
So pink at the top, blue at the bottom.
Other way around.
Other way around.
Yeah.
So it's a similar thing with X and Y. I was going to say I got my top and bottom mixed up, but I'm not going to do that obvious joke that I can easily fall into.
I feel like you're a blue fan. Am I right?
I do like blue. I did it because it was quite a sporty color.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of why I chose it for the show, and quite a sort of masculine color, and not that masculinity is super important to the show, but when you're talking about essentially being really gay and really into sport, I didn't want to sort of fall for like rainbow flags everywhere. I just didn't want it to be because I do it. The show ends in a big music video that I self-produced, filming on a green screen in my lounge. And I made that really gay. So there's lots of rainbow flags and stuff in that. But I didn't want the aesthetic of the show to be that on the nose. It felt a bit that felt a bit sort of playing to stereotype. So that's why I sort of went for something a bit more graphic as a sort of visual instead of going down the rainbow sort of approach, which is something you'd sort of would say would be the most obvious first port of call.
Well, and I think I mean, it just highlights the fact that everyone's still just human at the end of it. Like, you don't have to follow the set guidelines. You can create your own guidelines. You don't have to go down, universe's guidelines of color.
Although when you do become gay, you do have to sign up to the LGBT4 portal, where you learn all the up to date. That's where you sign your contracts, and you fully commit yourself to the Church of LGBTQ. So that's a lie, by the way. That's an amusing lie. Right, here we go. We're coming to a point where it's starting to look like a thing, isn't it?
Yep.
So
we've got, what's this device? This is another swoopy swoop.
This is a swoopy swoop, but just scaled down because this is a smaller little title. So yeah, it's just moving a bit slowly at the moment. So just whack you down. So there we go. And that sort of concludes your swoopy swoops. And this timeline's a bit busy for my liking, but you sort of get the full. It's just a bit more graphic than me just putting my name up.
Yeah. Okay.
So there we go.
Does the job.
It does the job. So what would you change? What would you do? I feel like this is a bit close, perhaps.
Have we got some masking happening? So I would look into the alignment of the text on Equalizer. I don't know if it's just the way it's the timing of it. As it kind of comes up, it looks like there's a bigger gap below than there is above.
I think that is actually just where I've placed it in the.
I see. Yeah.
In the composition, because this is very tidy stuff. So yeah, I think that's where that happens. And then we have view drive in. Yeah, that works. There we go. Sorted, fixed.
Amazing.
So that's sort of a basics. So then we could probably apply this to the credits. So I've got a load of credits, which sort of is played over some video that I've got. That's just actually one text. I've done these all as text things because I had the idea of animating all of them individually as they came in to create one big credit stock. So it was a bit sort of like your classic credits as me being publicly gay.
Is that Wembley?
It's at Wembley. It's during the Euros. So the storyline of the show is I went to the Euros and brought a rainbow flag, and hilarity ensues. Stroke homophobia. Bit of fun. It's a light show. So that's me and my best mate, Joe. Another Joe. I'm only friends with Joes.
You are attracted to many Joes.
I am, yeah. So this is sort of like, I don't mind this being static, but it would be quite cool if we created something where it's a bit more linear. But yeah, again, this is all quite graphic stuff. Have you got any ideas, Joe?
So one thing that I think could be interesting with these, have you used much of the motion graphics templates in Essential Graphics panel?
I see. This is where I feel like I should say yes, but the reality is no.
Yeah.
So we'll stick with the reality. So are you going to give me a live tutorial here?
If you're up for it, I think it would be
Heck
interesting to see. Yeah.
Yes.
So if you go to Window and then Essential Graphics.
You do not realize how much I had to not just get up and walk to my window then. I so wanted to. Just know that would have been a very, very funny joke. There we go.
Okay, so this is sort of like your composition control panel. So you can drop stuff into here, you can make changes, and it adjusts what's happening in your layers. Likewise, you could then export that into, say, Premiere, and then you have those controls that you've chosen in this control panel to be malleable and changed.
So typography wise, I can sort of change the text in Premiere Pro, and so if I did one of these, I can just create one credit template and then update that one and do that in Premiere Pro instead of having to do it in After Effects. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So super useful. Just thinking of things with your end credits. So for example, if you wanted to take, you got your layer, I think it's layer 7, the directed by, and if you twirl that down.
Twirl it, what? Just like stack wise?
No. With the arrow on the left, to the left of the red square.
Twirl. That's what we're saying.
Twirl.
That is,
That's
we're twirling that down.
Swoopy,
See, I would have said unpack.
Okay.
But no, it's fine. No, let's twirl it down.
And then likewise for the text, you can untwirl that.
I'm twirling.
And then if you drag your source text into the Essential Graphics panel, you now have a space where you can make your edits and your adjustments.
So you could call that how. So you would. I'm guessing this is where the title is. So you'd call that a subtitle, or say if that was a subtitle, you could call it a subtitle, and then that's the text.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So where I would potentially take this scamp, so obviously this has all been made and created. If you were to then convert that onto like a template factor, probably the first one would be your name. So you could have line 1, line 2 as its own thing. Again, in the same Essential Graphics panel, you could create, instead of putting subtitle, you could put line 1, for example, or name or something. You can drop that in.
This is very good. This is very useful.
So this is also quite key in some ways of working. And again, I do this a lot with coding, where sometimes I put the answer, I put exactly what I want first, and then I'll go back and then I'll code what I actually need to create. So that way you know what the journey is, what the direction is. You just don't know how to get there yet. That's exactly what we've done here. We've made a template, we've made the title, and now let's actually make it user-friendly. So yeah, you got your line 1, your line 2. Likewise, if you did your equalizer text, which is within its own comp, but you can still drag it into the Essential Graphics.
So would I do that by doing? Oh God, that's hard to look at, isn't it? So would I do that? How are we doing that then? Because it's wrapped
go back
up in.
on this comp, the title screen AL.
Sorry.
So you have, I think you might have equalizer somewhere down below, maybe, or is it?
No, I do it. I have it in the equalizer text panel, but I deleted it because I was being tidy but inefficient.
Okay. So in this case, what we potentially would do is we would use the vertical type tool, create it once, and then duplicate that layer, but have the text reference back to the first layer. And then within the Essential Graphics panel, that's where we would put the single use of the word equalizer. So if you changed it, you changed the spelling, it would update across all of them.
So let's let's do a dupe of this and just sort of let's do that now, shall we?
Yep.
Because it won't take us long. So vertical
the benefit is
title.
you've got all your motion already created. So
okay,
everything's
there we go.
ready to go. So you can type out equalizer.
I did it all with my own hands. So we can do this actually. I don't think you're right. It's unnecessary to have done the words, isn't it? This is a much tidier way of doing it.
But of course, it means that by thinking this way, you had to have known what you were actually making. And so sometimes you got to do the messy work to then come back and tidy it up.
So true. The amount of times I do that in sort of when I'm creating stuff on XD or that's just literally right the words X there, like XD or anything like that, when I'm doing sort of symbols, libraries and that kind of stuff. At times you're like, I could have made that so much easier for myself about 10 minutes ago if I'd just not been thick.
Yeah. So this so you're now setting your
this is my little guide
spacing. Yeah, got you.
And I'm going to make you a different color again. Absolutely certain there's an easier way of doing that. Right, so here's my vertical.
So now what you can do is you can drag that equalizer text into your essential graphics comp.
So drop. I'm a thicko. Sorry. There we go. Drag that there. Sorry about rendering. It's off the board.
Oh, I know why. It's because you've created a new comp, equalizer text 2, and that one isn't in your parent composition, the title screen AL, which is fine. So you can come back to that later. Don't worry too much.
I see. Okay, I'm with you.
Yep. So now what I would do is I would duplicate that equalizer text layer that you have and move it to where you need. And now, if you twirl down equalizer 2 and the text, and then if you grab the pick whip, which is the swirly icon to your right on that layer, and point that towards the original equalizer layer on the text. The word
guide.
Text. No, you could do the guide, I suppose.
But we'll do that one.
Yeah. So now, when you change the text one time, it will change it across all of them.
Cool. So if I now put sort of a Q there, then.
Not on that one. You have to do it on the first one.
Ah, yes, because that's the
Or you
master.
could do it in your essential graphics panel. You can just change it. The word.
Here we are.
You see, now this becomes like the control panel for everything. And so as you then duplicate that equalizer 2 layer, it's going to maintain that reference to the original one, and it's going to allow you then to speedily use the same text and word and
look at that.
Move this around, do what you want.
That's brilliant. That's genius.
What you would then do after you've set your layers, you'd probably then just copy your keyframes from the original movement that you did, the rough one.
Yeah.
Put those over and.
Although it will be different now because all of the I've put the letters in a different order.
That's
so
true.
I'd have to do it again. But that'll be yeah. Look at that live learning.
Yeah, no,
it's quite cool, isn't it?
Exactly the way we like it. Yeah.
Is that the way you like it, or do you expect me to have a sort of level of more professionalism than I actually do?
No, to be honest, actually, personally, I find, and I think this as well with going back to coding and development, is so often when you're trying to solve a problem for yourself, you actually have to solve someone else's problem first. So you go and you maybe Google for something that's broken in your code, and you're like, oh, how do I set the text vertical? And then you come across usually a Stack Overflow website post or something, and it's someone saying, oh, my text is sideways, how do I fix that? So you solve their problem, and in doing so, you then learn how to solve your problem. It's a way of just picking up little
I also just think this is the problem where I bring you live, sort of a live thing, a live brief that hasn't. So it's not like a thought out sort of. It's not like a tutorial per se. It's more about the creative side of creating something that looks and feels how we are. Of course, as we are now doing, there are better ways of doing it.
I think it's quite relatable to to a lot of people who do watch and are self-taught. Various things, and sometimes coming across something that is completely polished and is fully done, it doesn't have that relatable factor to being like, oh, you know what, quite often I mess things up in After Effects. It's nice to see that not everything is smooth from 0 to 100.
Well, this is the sort of the joy of having a piece of software that gives you about 15 different opportunities to do something. Is there is always sort of you're always going to be able to do the thing that you want to do, but there will always be a quicker way when you are talking to someone who uses this a lot more than I probably do. But I'm a self-maker, and if this is to inspire anything, it's that you can make absolutely anything yourself.
Definitely. And likewise, I mean, I know that the majority of your work is more print-based and other stuff. So I love that you're
It's
animating?
more. It's actually more. I've not done print probably for about 8 years, but I do a lot of web design and app design. So my job is mainly in web and app. So that's where I
I
spend.
realized that as I said that I meant
Yeah,
static.
static basically, not motion. But I picked up After Effects. The reason why I started doing it was because I wanted to show developers how I wanted something to move.
Yep.
And instead of finding examples of the exact thing that you want, it was just easier me sort of jumping into After Effects. And I had a basic understanding of it from uni, but that was 12 years ago when After Effects was a glorified Flash.
Mhm.
And now it's this sort of completely different tool. So yeah, I sort of had to learn it through that, and then sort of I was working in a smaller company at the time, so we said yes to any animation job that came in, and then worked out how to do it afterwards, which I recommend is the best way to work because it puts you under pressure to learn. Same with Premiere Pro. It's like yeah, sure, we can do video work, sure. And then we sat down and went, right, who can use Premiere Pro? And we all looked
Yep.
around, and no one could. And I thought, well, I've got a bit of an understanding of After Effects. Maybe I'll learn Premiere Pro. And now, fast forward a year and a hell of a lot of YouTubing to find out how to do things. It's something I feel very comfortable in, even if I'm not doing the right shortcuts or sort of doing things properly. And there is an argument to say you should always try and do things as properly as possible, but it's just not realistic. All of those tutorials are so neat and tidy. It's just not how people work. It's not how I work.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's so common, and mentioned here as well in the chat. To Tim has said, "There's 1,000 different ways to achieve something, and 2,000 different ways to screw it up along the way."
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The amount of times you sort of, particularly with something so advanced as like After Effects now, the amount of times you basically unclick something or sort of like something just is then invisible and you don't know how you've made it invisible. And there's some incredibly clever functionality that will help you down the line in about 3 projects time that you didn't realize existed and it actually ruined your whole system. And then it sort of forces you then to learn more about it and then sort of play with cameras and stuff. So yeah, I think that was something I learned as well. Camera work and stuff on this was really, really useful when doing sort of more long form animation and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's always a quicker way of doing something.
And likewise here, mention of being self-taught and learned a lot of stuff on the internet. It's now hard to unlearn the bad habits and work more efficient. And likewise, saying that they've never opened Essential Graphics. Well, there's a gift to you. Go and play with that and see how it progresses. But yeah, bad habits, and sometimes they shouldn't even be labeled bad habits. They're just,
they're just a different way of doing something. I think that should be the way. There are some like genuine bad habits where like people like sort of don't follow grids or something, particularly within web. It's quite a good idea to have like 8-pixel based sort of systems, and there are different systems that are really good for like developers and stuff that make life a hell of a lot easier for you and them if you have a basic template that you can work to, and then you can just change fonts and sort of layouts and stuff and the sort of slight aesthetic. So there is best practices and genuine bad habits where people duplicate the same thing over and over and over again, and that's just will double your time of your job. But I think when you're also sort of having to sprint something out, you sort of have to negate the fact that you're not going to get everything spot on straight away, because let's face it, we all work in this industry. The amount of times that people go, oh yeah, we're doing a thing for, I don't know, name brand here, they need it for yesterday, and then all of a sudden you have to sort of invent time travel through After Effects to create something in the same way that time is running out for this special to be on. So it felt like a good example of work that I need to now create in the small amount of time I have between now and November in terms of free time, because I don't have much free time and this has to be done in my free time. So hopefully a relatable brief, albeit a slightly messy one. But I think we got there in the end.
I love the title design and everything that comes together. I think going back to the very start, there's a lot of little nods in there that people may not realize, like even just the whole equals sign coming across, like a really nice little touch. Is actually mentioned here. The more I've been looking at it, the more I'm thinking it looks like the Brighton and Hove Albion team. I just know them as blue and white. Yeah,
Yeah.
And then seagulls.
Seagulls. Yeah. Well, they're a very likable club. No,
Yep.
no one dislikes Brighton, apart from Crystal Palace fans, and I live in Crystal Palace, so bit of fun, bit of fun, and non-design or useful info from me at the end of that.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you, Joe, for sharing your designs and the animated piece. If we could have a run through if it's working, or did you break it at the end?
No, I think I've because I duplicated everything because I'm super tidy. I should have exported this really, and instead now I'm just button bashing my way around. Right, let's see if I can just get this bit bigger. Right, here we go. Brilliant. This has gone. You shouldn't have told me to do anything, Joe. Here we go. You can sort of guess. There we go. It sort of looks like this.
Brilliant.
There we go.
There we go.
That's what we created today in under an hour.
Love the wipe. Yeah, no, it all came together and works out well. Excellent.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing this, Joe. For those of you who want to catch up on Adobe Live, we will be back tomorrow. I will be back tomorrow hosting Tim, who will be doing a crash course in Adobe After Effects. So continuing on.
I might join for that one.
Yeah, please do.
I might need it.
It's always great to have moments of sharing the work and then other moments of teaching the various things. And Tim is a fantastic teacher, so please do join for that tomorrow at 12, and then of course on Friday for Adobe Express, Liz will be back, and that will be the week before we head to Max, which, if I'm not mistaken, has come around and is next week. That is very exciting indeed. For that, I will be live from Munich along with a load of other people. So, thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks, Joe, for joining. Any closing words or thoughts? Any quick promos or plugs?
Oh, if you want more of this nonsense, follow me at Joseph Parsons Comedy on Instagram or TikTok, because I'm very young.
All right. Well, we'll see you there. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.
Love you. Bye.